Hello, my name's Liz Rowlinson, editor of Place in the Sun, and I'm here with Zoe and Ben Attwood of Homes of America Realty, and we're going to talk about buying in Florida, particularly 12 frequently asked questions. So good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Now, if we could, we're going to cover lots of ground, but let's, can you just kick off about telling us, about your company, how you set it up, what you do?
Sure, yeah. So as you said, our company name is Homes America Realty. We're based in Florida. We are a family business. My mum and dad, Jan and Howard Thorne, set it up 25 years ago now. And more latterly, Ben came into the company and I came into the company. My sister Kylie has always been part of it on the property management side. But we really are a family company, one-stop shop, helping people and families, mainly in the UK, but all different nationalities, really understand what it is and what it needs to buy a property in Florida. But we help with the buying, the selling, we do the property management, we do the rentals, do the mortgages, and even if people want to move to Florida, we can help them with that as well.
Yeah, Ben, I talked to one of your buyers not long ago who raved about your help with getting a mortgage.
Thank you very much.
You're the numbers man. We're gonna come on to that as one of our frequently asked questions. But yes, so we're going to cover, I mean, it's a good time to buy in Florida. I think they're getting rid of all the COVID restrictions this month. Finally, the US dollar's lost a bit of its value. So we're gonna talk about all the positive aspects and things to watch out for that you can talk us through. So yeah, I mean, should we talk about, first of all, we're going to think about the buying process. Before we're going to look at three videos about properties that will be good to rent, buy, different issues attached to that. But shall we talk about what about the market first, Zoe?
Yeah, the market at the moment is really quite buoyant. When you spoke about the COVID restrictions, we were really quite fortunate here in Florida. They didn't bite as hard in Florida as they did, I know, some of the other parts of the world. We only actually got restricted in terms of a true lockdown for 6 weeks. And so we fared fairly good, and everything opened up very quickly. So for us, really, we've been open now for a number of years, and we had very little effect in terms of how COVID hit. And in fact, a lot of our homeowners that have their homes with us on property management and rent them out all did very well. I know we had some concerns at the beginning as to what COVID was going to be and what it was going to do to us all, but actually they all fared really well. And we even had people that wanted to sell at the beginning that actually saw how well they did in terms of the rental through that time and took the property off the market and did exceptionally well with renting. So the market has recovered, and it's been recovered for some time now. The exchange rate is favourable. That's going the right direction. We're pleased to see that. The mortgage rates are higher than they have been, but Ben has got some exclusive lower the market rates that he can always help people with. So there are some positives in there, but as any time, Liz, that it's all about being responsive to that market, and the market can go up and it can go down. And through our 25 years, we've seen it go up and we've seen it go down. But the real skill and art is for people like Ben and I and our company to help people react to that market and know when it's a good time to buy and when it's not a good time to buy.
And also, to follow on from Zoe's point, the USA the entire USA COVID restriction ends on Friday, so people who are unvaccinated can actually travel to the US on Friday or from Friday, and so we're going to see a lot more people come over, especially for the school summer holidays that are fast approaching.
Yeah, and when tourism closely follows real estate investment, and Florida, people love Florida, don't they? So okay, yeah. Well, look, you mentioned the market, Zoe, and the first big question we're going to address, is it a good time to get a deal?
Yeah, well, in fact, Ben might be able to assist with that, because I know he's had some really good deals for his buyers recently.
There are still some sellers who think they've got the prime property who want a high price, but most people are more realistic and adjust accordingly. And we have seen some houses that come on the market sensibly priced, and there are deals out there. We're seeing offers coming in under ask now, where sellers are more incentivized to take the offer or certainly negotiate an offer rather than holding out for the high price and insisting on getting the price and trying to get overpriced. We're now seeing prices come down a little bit.
Great. And the estate agents operate very differently in America. What is a realtor? How does that differ from the estate agent you might have in Foxtons or something on the high street in the UK? Zoe?
Well, a realtor here is a licensed professional who can show any buyer any house in any area. So like we all know in the UK, an estate agent has their set of homes that they're instructed upon, so they can sell that particular home. But in the States and in Florida particularly, realtors are able to see across all of the estate agents, if you like, so that if you saw any property on the market, you could go to a particular realtor and they could show you that house regardless of where it is. I think one of the things that is really important to remind people watching this is that I think that sometimes there's a misunderstanding in that regard. So it's always a good thing to do your research on the realtor. Make sure you understand who they are, what the company is, what their speciality is. Do they know the area? If you're looking for a short-term rental, are they short-term vacation rental experts? Really dig into who they are and what they are, because there can be some misunderstandings on that. And it's a short, sharp learning curve that then when you get the wrong one. So make sure you get the right realtor and then stay with them, because they then should be able to show you any property, whether it's a new build or whether it's a resale. It doesn't matter. They should be able to help you regardless.
And how does it work with fees? In the UK, it's sort of 1.5% that the seller pays. How much does it cost to use your services?
Well, a buyer's agent, there's no fee. So usually when a house is put on the market, there's a commission paid for by the seller, and that commission is split between the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. So if you go out to start looking at houses, you don't expect to be paying any fees. The fee is only attributable when the property closes and it's paid for by the seller. So you can hire a realtor or come and speak to us. We can show you houses, and it's completely free.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, we've talked about the nitty-gritty a bit, so let's have a look at a property. We're going to look at a 3-bed condo in Kissimmee, I believe. Ben, do you just want to briefly tell us what we're going to have a quick look at?
Yeah, it's a 3-bed, 2-bathroom condo on Carib Cove Resort. It's a resort in the true sense of the word. It's got a clubhouse, it's got a communal pool, it's got lots of on-site amenities, kids play area, spa, lake views, plenty of space. The condo itself is on the 3rd floor. It's about 1,600 square foot. It's priced at $299,000. So it's probably, well, that's dollars. So it's probably about 240,000 pounds sterling. It rents very well. It's a great location. It's about 10 minutes drive to the Disney parks. And everything you need is very close by.
Sounds great. We'll take a look. Wow, it's a typically spacious American property, Zoe, and the green, it's really, there's nothing to spoil that amazing view.
No, I think that's again something that maybe people might not appreciate about Florida, because I think everybody thinks that it's, Mickey Mouse land and it's the theme parks. But actually, some of these communities are set in really quite pretty and beautiful landscaped communities. And you can see a little bit of that in the condo we've just looked at. Some of those grounds are just beautiful. There's some trees and forest area. There's a lake. It's all very peaceful, all very relaxing, but only, minutes away from Disney. So it's quite the treat.
And what's the whole pirate theme thing going on? It's called Pirates Retreat, I believe that
it is. Yeah, that's one of the addresses in that particular community. So we haven't seen any pirates knocking around, but it must just be the name that they chose. But they can be quite inventive and colourful with the names.
They do have a large plastic alligator at the entrance to the community.
Goodness, there's only plastic.
Exactly.
No, I mean, I love the wonderful themes, and we're going to see a lovely, themed bedroom in a bit. But what about? I mean, how much would that rent for that property?
Well, it's doing very well, actually. The condo has very high occupancy. It's showing about 35 to 40 weeks a year, that particular one. And that's all done through the management company. This particular owner has taken very much a back seat and used it very much as an investment property. And then per night, it's sitting somewhere, depending on the season, between $90 per night through to about $150 per night. So it's a 3-bed, 2-bath. So that's about right for a 3-bed condo to get those kind of rates.
Those weeks are incredible. And you forget, because I mean, in Europe, you might get a summer property in Spain renting for 12 or 13 weeks a year. That is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Again, it's one of the plus side of looking at Florida as your, decided place to buy a property as an investment property. We do have the advantage of pretty much all year round good weather. We don't really have seasonality. We really are quite warm and beautiful sunny weather all year round. We might get a bit cold in January. That might be about it. I think I've had my coat on twice this year. But other than that, it's, just beautiful, beautiful weather all way round. So the guests come all the way through that calendar year. So for an investor, that's very important, because you're really maximizing that calendar year to get your return on that investment.
Yeah, I think the last few people I've interviewed who've bought in Florida, their investment has been a very key thing of their purchase, as much as they love the American lifestyle, the services, the weather. But
yeah.
So what if you want to rent out your property when you're not using it? I mean, should you go for a condo, a single family home, as you call a detached property, a townhouse? What are the considerations?
Well, I think exactly what you said then, in fact, and it is whether you want to rent it or not. So that will be one of our key and initial questions to any buyer, is what is the purpose of your wish to buy in Florida? So, for example, if somebody wants to buy as a residential, just to come across themselves and use it as like a second home, maybe, then that's a very different property. But then if you're going to rent it, again, there's different levels of rent that you might want to achieve. So, for example, we've had some owners that said, I do want to rent, but I don't want to rent it so much. I still want it to be my house. And so they might rent it, say, 12 to 16 weeks a year, just enough to have the money coming in to cover some of their outgoings. Or they might want to go the other end of the extreme, which is, this is a pure investment. It's rent, money, money, money. So it depends on where they want to pitch it. So what we always say to people is, if it's a true rental investment, the best return on investment is always a single family home with its own private pool. Second to that would be a townhome with its own pool. And then third in place would be a condo. Now, that's not to say a condo won't rent. Of course, condos rent. We've just seen that example. But it's very particular condos. So not all condos is probably the rule, I would say. And then there are some exceptions. So we've seen Carib Cove, Bahama Bay and Davenport is another name that a lot of people might have heard of. So it's a consideration to be had as to how much you want that property to rent. And of course, then Ben and I can help that buyer work out which location, which property, what type of house that they would be looking for.
And the reason why there's a disparity is because of the pool. So a single family home usually has its own pool. A townhome may or may not have a pool, and a condo, well, definitely doesn't have a pool because usually it's in the sky somewhere. So yeah, so the pool is the draw, and so if you have a pool, you're likely to get more weeks.
Yeah, and I guess, does it work that when a resort, you pay for community, you pay for homeowner association fees, don't you? And is it a sort of rule of thumb of that the more sort of swanky the amenities, the higher those fees will be?
Yes. So if you've got an on-site water park and it's all singing and all dancing, you could be paying, $700, $800 a month for the privilege. Other communities don't have all the belts and whistles, and they have, it may just be a communal pool or a tennis court or a volleyball court. Well, your HOA dues are going to be much, much lower.
But then again, that water park might bring in more rentals and you can up your rates. So it's a sort of swings and roundabouts, isn't it? But is there an optimum number of bedrooms that, do people come as families to stay in at Disney area, or can you buy too many bedrooms or too few?
We always say to our buyers that really the sweet spot is somewhere between 3 and 6 bedrooms. Anything more than that can rent, but you may struggle more than you would with a property that's got 3 to 6 bedrooms. And the reason behind that is it seems to split into 2 camps. And it's either the 3 or 4 bed, which might accommodate, a smaller family, a husband, a wife, a couple of children. They will only need really a 3 or 4 bed property. But then you've also got a lot of families that come together to Florida and to the central Orlando area. So say if, sister with her husband and children want to come, or auntie, uncle, whoever, a grouping of families, then they're obviously going to need a bigger property. So that's when the 5 and the 6 beds really kind of come into play. You can go, it sounds crazy, but you can go as high as 15 bedrooms, but we're really getting into kind of mini hotels then. There is a market for it and they do rent, but in our experience, they would have to work harder. So our advice to buyers is always, why put yourself up against that incline? Why not just take the sweeter spot, something is going to work for you? It's going to cost you less, but your return on your investment is going to be greater.
We have seen families buy a smaller bedroom property, a 3 or a 4, and then realize they need more and sell it and then buy a slightly bigger property. So you've got that option as well.
I've seen that. Yeah. And what about, families staying in, all these families, there's going to be a lot of wear and tear. Short-term rentals are clearly a good way of guaranteeing lots of income, but is there an argument that doing medium-term rentals is a possibility for some?
Yeah, we do have a medium-term type rental of a sort here. We have Florida snowbirds. So the sort of older generation, if I can put it as kindly as that might come down from the northern states or from Canada and may come down and stay somewhere between January and April every year. And we welcome them with open arms because they're wonderful guests, typically an older couple, just the 2 of them. And, there's not much wear and tear on that property then. And if anything, they take really good care of it and they're interested in the properties because they come back year on year on year. So if you treat your snowbird well, you will get that return business every year. So that's kind of the pattern that we like to see our homeowners get into, because it's that guaranteed bookings. You should never say guaranteed bookings, I know, but it's a guarantee that they're going to come back year on year and treat that house really well. So that wear and tear risk is reduced. And if anything, they actually help. In fact, we had a couple that came in at their end of their stay just recently, and he gave us a whole rundown saying, well, this loft was looking a little bit dodgy, so I fixed it for you, or the blinds weren't quite right, so I put them, so they're doing little bits of repair to the property.
Well, I went to view a house last week after the snowbirds had left. I hadn't realised that the cleaners had not been in. I walked in and the house was spotless. And I said, oh, the cleaners have done an excellent job. And I was then told the cleaners haven't been in yet. So they really tidied up after themselves. It looked immaculate.
Yeah, and we do get questions, Liz, about long-term rents. So by long-term, more like 6 months to 12-month type situations, which again, a lot of investor type people will think that's the way to go with the long-term rent. But our experience has been the reverse, unfortunately. We've found that in this kind of immediate area where we sell and buy properties, that the type of tenants that you would get are not those that you would want, unfortunately. And again, I'm trying to say it as nicely as I can, but that's our experience. So in fact, we would advise our owners not to go down the long-term route because of the real wear and tear that you will see to a property. And actually the short-term approach is much better because you've got that changeover happening quicker and more often. We as a property management company are able to get in on a more regular basis. So there's just always that check being made on your property. And if there was ever any problem, we would be able to spot it and alert that homeowner to it.
Yeah, and you've raised another important point is that short-term rentals, they come in a zone, don't they? So communities are generally you're allowed to do them or you're not. Is that correct?
Correct. So there's it's based on zoning. So in the counties where close to where our office is, we have Lake, Orange, Osceola, and Polk. Orange, other than a very small pocket, is not a short-term rental county, but the other three are. So long as your property is in those counties, you'll be able to rent short-term. But we would always check and make sure you're looking at a property that is zoned for short-term rental, which goes back to Zoe's original question. We ask people is, what's your purpose? Because if it's short-term rental, we have to make sure you're in a short-term rental zone. And if you don't want to be in the short-term rental zone, you can buy anywhere else.
Great. And then another consideration, I think this came up with a buyer I interviewed recently, and I think this relates to one of the thing we're going to look at next is there are newer and there are older communities, aren't there, in this area? And there is the argument if you buy on a new, fresh property with the latest amenities, that could be a more of an attraction for rentals. I think Windsor Hills we're going to look at now. Is that a newer one?
Well, Windsor Hills was all built in and around 2004 kind of time. So it's an older one, believe it or not, in terms of how Floridians will look at the age of a property. I know for a lot of us Brits that will think, well, that's relatively a new house. But yeah, for Florida terms, an older community, Windsor Hills was put in place really for its location because it is so close to Disney. I mean, you're pretty much on Disney's doorstep. So even though it's an older community, you cannot beat that location because, of course, it's got that location as a prized position. And so it's always done very, very well. It's just got a very good name for itself. There are certain communities like Windsor Hills, another one that people might have heard on Highlands Reserve, Tuscan Hills. There's sort of the older communities that they'll have heard about. And so that's good for a person buying it if they're thinking about renting it, because then you'll have your guests coming to you saying, I want to be in Windsor Hills, please. And you can say, of course, I've got that property. We can help you with that.
Is there another Windsor that's of the same company, am I thinking?
There's a Windsor Island.
Windsor Island. There's Windsor at West Side. There's quite a few.
They seem to like the association with the Windsor name, perhaps.
Oh, very appropriate as we come out of Coronation Weekend here.
Yes.
So, great. Well, should we look at another property? We're going to look at on Windsor Hills, a 3-bed property. Tell us about this, Zoe or Ben.
Yeah, well, this property, we have recently helped the owners of it sell this property. But we wanted to show it as an example of a townhouse because it has its own pool. And so that's really key, going back to the points we were making before about the rentability of the property. But the homeowners actually came into our office yesterday, laden with gifts and thanks for us. And they've actually done 18 years of property management with us. And so all very thankful. They're just moving on to, new things and life events in their life. But this property has served them very, very well. It was always fully booked. Their occupancy levels were through the roof.
Very high, yeah.
They always sat somewhere between 45 and 48 weeks a year. And it's just a nice little 3-bed townhome. The square footage is 1440. So not the biggest of properties, but when you go in it's just really cute. It's enough. It's enough without it being a sprawling property. So it's just a really good example of what a townhome can look like with its own pool that did very well on the rental side.
Okay, let's take a look. Oh yeah, that's the one I saw with the Mickey Mouse. That it's quite a popular thing to do, the themed bedrooms for the children. I mean, it is great, as you say. I mean, does that slightly might that put off some other people with doing themed bedrooms? I know it's very popular.
Yeah, it's a very definite balance to be had. I think they did very well with that theme bedroom in that house because of its location being so close to Disney. But you're right that there are other golf communities, for example, that where owners might say to us, oh, we want to do a themed bedroom. What do you think? And we'll say, well, yes, good idea. And we'll describe and discuss all the different ideas that you might have for a themed bedroom. But you have to be pretty careful. I don't think usually sort of grown particularly male golfers want to stay in a princess bedroom.
No.
So
No.
there's a fine line to be had.
There are certain themes you can incorporate, Harry Potter, Star Wars.
Minions, I've seen that a few times.
Minions.
Yeah.
Right.
So that wouldn't be but yeah, when it's a princess room with glitter and lots of fluff, they
It's not for you.
yeah, no, it's not for me.
Great. And how much would that property cost to buy, to give people an idea, Zoe?
The Windsor hit, so that was about 350,000 sterling.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all furniture and everything. Again, that's another slight difference that I want to make sure people are aware of. That here, when you buy a vacation home, as opposed to a residential home, but a vacation home, the furniture typically is all included. And that will literally mean everything you see in that house, the table, the chairs, the beds, everything, even down to pots and pans in the cupboards and dusters in the cupboards and silverware, everything. So it's a really good way of buying a property because, of course, then you don't then have to start thinking about kitting it out. That said, there are some occasions where they might not have the furniture in, sometimes that happens. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not a bad thing. It just means that from a buyer's perspective, you have to be aware that you're then going to have to factor that in terms of your budget. So for, say, like this one, a 3-bed townhome, to then kit it out with all its furniture, you need to be saying maybe around the kind of $25,000 to $30,000 worth of furniture that you would be putting into it. And I mean, that's everything included in that price. And, good stuff, not, top whack, but good, decent, hard-wearing rental furniture. So you've just got to be mindful of that, but most of them will have the furniture in it.
Okay, great. Well, look, I mean, what about taking a mortgage, Ben? I spoke to someone recently who realized that, I think talking perhaps to you, that getting a mortgage might really increase their buying power and get a bigger property, where they just assumed that they just wanted to pay cash and that was the best thing. I mean, why is taking a mortgage a good idea?
There's various reasons. The first one, as you say, it extends your budget. So you might have 100,000 sterling, but all of a sudden you can afford a $400,000 home. So your money goes further. Other people we've seen over the last few years, cash buyers actually not buy a property 100% cash. They actually keep some of their money back for other life events or other projects or other things they want to do. So that helps as well. You then don't have to battle the currency market in the same way, rather than sending 100% of the value over and one day having enough and the next day not having enough. You minimize your risk by sending 30% and the rest can be borrowed and financed over here.
Great. And I think also you can, if you rent it out, can you deduct, I guess this is more of a tax thing, but you can deduct expenses as well.
Yes. Yeah, so the interest element of the loan payment or the mortgage payment is still tax deductible over here, which gives you a deduction against your income tax. And then you're right, all the other deductions can be applied. Flights, flying over to see the property. So even before you've bought a property, those flights can be cost of acquisition and used to reduce your taxes. So there's a number of deductions that you can apply. Yes.
And I think that, I mean, Americans, I think it is slightly more difficult than in some other countries to get a mortgage as a non-American. But how does it work? It's clearly possible to get one through your company, etc.
Yeah. So I would sit down with the buyer and discuss their options. And if they wanted to explore a mortgage, it's a straightforward form. It's called a pre-qualification. I can then run some numbers and explain what they can and can't do, set out a budget, and then we can help them look at properties within that budget. And then once they find a house, I send them a list of documents they need to provide. We then prepare the mortgage application, submit it, and usually you can close within 4 to 6 weeks. So it's a very, very quick, smooth process over here.
Any age restrictions?
No age restrictions. So we've helped folks who are in their mid-60s buy houses and secure 30-year mortgages.
And how much do people borrow? Is there a maximum that's realistic?
There's no maximum. There's a minimum. Lenders like to, they like borrowers to borrow a minimum of $200,000.
Right.
Less than that, it's not really worth their while. But you can go wherever you want to go. We've seen people borrow significantly high sums of money. So yeah, you can go wherever you want. There's no maximum you can borrow. So it means you can buy a condo, a townhome, or a single family home wherever you want to go.
I think that's the good thing, Liz, that over our years of doing this, we've had so many different buyers that we've come across. And of course, the beauty of us all is that we're so different. And you have those people that are just very naturally cautious, understandably, that don't want to put themselves in that position. Perhaps they're a little older in age and thinking, I don't want another mortgage. So as a nation, we're typically quite shy about going for more loans and finances. But it's almost the norm here that I think, because in Florida, the viewpoint is slightly different, that, there is no ageism. They kind of laugh at you when you say, can I do it because of my age? Because that's just not the thinking over here, that it's very much, the land of opportunity and convenience. But I think one thing we see an awful lot of when people come to the shows, I can't help but feel sorry for people sometimes. They feel so downtrodden and sort of told to be in a certain, position. And it's always nice to be able to say, no, actually, there are so many other ways that you can do this. And that's really what we want to do, is make sure that people know their options. It doesn't mean they have to do it. It just means let's make sure you've got all of the different options in front of you, you're properly informed, and then you can make your decision then. Ben's helping a gentleman at the moment buy a property who could have bought it using cash, but just, talking about it and the different ways he could have done it if he did it cash, and the different ways if he did it with a mortgage. The gentleman's actually decided to do it using a mortgage because he saw the sense of using somebody else's money, using dollars to pay dollars, and he keeps his cash for something else then. And the house he's buying is going to be an income producing property. So why not buy with using the mortgage and make that money work for you? The money you're going to get on the rental income is going to cover those mortgage payments. And we're just very careful about what type of house anybody then buys, because of course, they have to meet those outgoings. We don't want anybody to be in a bad position.
Okay, and then the minimum down payment, is it 70%?
Yeah, 30% at the moment is the minimum. Yeah,
loan.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, look, let's have another look at a final property. We're going to look at a 5-bed single family home on Reunion. Zoe, tell us a little bit about this.
No, I love this house. This house came to us only a couple of years ago now, built in 2019. It's a 5-bed, 4-bath on Reunion, which if anybody watching knows, Reunion is just this amazing community that's based here in Central Florida, all singing, all dancing, very upper class, very salubrious, very nice feel to the community. It's got 3 championship golf courses on the community. I think Ben's played every one of them.
2 of the 3.
It's got 11 on-site community pools and 6 restaurants, and then a whole number of playgrounds. It's got a wonderful restaurants there, 11 if anybody's in town and wants a nice sit-down dinner. That's a very good recommendation. But the house itself, the owners have used it as a rental investment. And it's just flown off the shelves, no problem, rented every day, no problem. Good rates, more like the 200 to 300 a night kind of mark. An occupancy for this house is always sat around kind of 40 to 46 weeks.
Right, let's take a look. Well, yes, you can. It's a sort of another league, isn't it? That sort of slick contemporary decor, the cinema room. Wow, how much would this cost to buy?
It's around about $700,000, so £550,000.
Mm. Well, it's still, I mean, your money still goes a long way, doesn't it? That's an awful lot of house.
It is a
It
lot
is,
of house.
yeah.
It's 2,500 square foot house. And it's a lot of house, but it's got a lot of areas that people can spend time in as a family because it's that bit bigger. The other thing of, excuse me, the other thing of note is that with these type of properties that you have to make sure you've got that good outside space. The deck and the pool is very important. And this house, of course, has got no rear neighbours to it, so just perfect.
Is it the orientation that also matters? Is it south facing again? Is it key with that pool?
It can make the difference, absolutely. Right. We always say that the king position is south, the prince position is then west. Right. East can also do very well, and north faces can do well. So it's not that they won't rent, they will rent. But again, when we're thinking about what kind of challenges do we want to put in front of us when renting a property, why would we make this any more harder than it needs to be? And if we can get a south or a west facing home, it's always going to be that little bit more easier to rent it. And the obvious reason for that is that guests are very savvy, that they will know to ask, what way is the pool facing? Yeah. And of course, if you say east or north, they can very easily go, next one. But if you're saying south and west, it's another tick. Right, we'll continue with this house. So when we're looking at renting it, that's what we want to do, have enough ticks, enough reasons why that guest is going to say, I'm going to stay with this property.
Yeah, okay. Lots of useful info on rentals there. We could talk about rentals forever, but we're keeping an eye on the time. We're going to just finish up by talking about moving to Florida, because we are seeing people wanting to do that as well. Zoe, I mean, what are the different, can you just give us a brief overview of the situation with getting a visa?
Sure, yeah. Well, more and more people are wanting to move generally now. We are finding when we attend the Place in the Sun exhibitions, an awful lot of people are saying, unfortunately, we want to get out of the UK and we want to move. And a lot are asking us about Florida in particular. I would say it's easy when you know how to do it, meaning that there's a set process that isn't that hard, but you need to make sure you equip yourself with a good immigration attorney for sure. Yeah. And we can help anybody with recommendations. But there's lots of different ways you can do it. So any one of us on a British passport can come to Florida and stay for 90 days as of right, and that's on the ESTA program. A lot of people are interested to know about the B1, B2 visa, which is the 6-month idea. So where you can come to Florida for 6 months in any one 12-month period, and that's on a rolling basis, not a calendar year, but meaning you can come and stay for those 6 months. You can split it up. You can come for 3 months, go home, visit family, come back, do another 3 months.
Or multiple 2-week holidays. That also is fine as well.
But you're allowed to do that. The only caveat is you're not allowed to work. Shucks. But then if you want to move on a more permanent basis, then there's a whole plethora of different visas, and you must go to an immigration attorney to get this advice from them. But in very brief terms, you can do, there's one called an E2 visa, where you can buy and invest in a business, and that allows you then to move to Florida on the back of that. You can get what's called an L1 visa, which is slightly longer in duration. That's almost like an inter-company transfer. So if you had a company in the UK that maybe has a branch over in the US, or is a company that could be picked up and brought over to Florida and set down here, then you could do an L1 visa. Some people go straight to green card. So there's a number of different ways that you can do it. But our best advice is get with that immigration attorney, tell them what your situation is, if you have any professions, what you could come on the back of, and they will advise you.
Yeah.
Okay. And Ben, I mean, if people are thinking about wanting to make a move, what are the different things? Well, assuming they can get a visa, what other things do people have to consider as far as preparing, setting up to move?
Well, obviously they need somewhere to live, so that might be a consideration. Where are they going to live? Are they going to live, close to their business, ideally, because they're setting up? Do they need a bank account, because they're going to need, somewhere to put their money that they're earning? Cars. There's all sorts of considerations to look into, but we can help with all of them, because we've helped. We're helping about 3 or 4 families right now move over. We've just helped a couple of families move over, and we've helped families in the past move over. So yeah, we've done this time and time again. So we know the pitfalls, and we also know what to keep an eye out for.
And those families that you're helping now, I mean, have they been planning it a year or 2? I mean, sometimes it's quite a long time, isn't it?
Some families have been looking at doing this since about 2015, and they're only just getting over here now. Life events happen and it delays things. Others make a decision at a show, such as Manchester this year. We want to move, and we're talking to them now, and they're looking to get over here this year. So it can be a couple of months, it could be a couple of years. It's up to individual circumstances.
I think the main thing with that, Liz, is to make sure that they're doing the proper research, because again, like anything, there's always these scare stories about people who buy businesses that are fraudulent or, haven't been presented in the correct manner and aren't what they said to be. So that's something that Ben particularly can help anybody with. He's a business broker as well. So when people want to move over, once they've got that immigration advice and give the thumbs up, yes, you can do this. If they're going to go down the route of maybe buying a business, they can consult with Ben. He will help them find different businesses in Florida and then go through the due diligence process, meaning forensically look at the accounts of that company and make sure that they are what they say they are. And again, if it's all thumbs up, we move on to the next step. The other thing in terms of getting a property here, that's something that definitely needs to be considered before the move is made. Simply because when you do come to Florida and you step off that plane, all your credit in the UK disappears and you start again. So there's certain things that through us doing it ourselves and helping other people, we can then impart and help anybody that's looking to do it.
Brilliant. So that's, looking for a property management, mortgages, financial advice, everything. It's a one-stop shop.
It is everything but world
and
peace.
You mentioned Manchester, Ben. We've got coming to the exhibition is a great opportunity to come and meet you in terms of next steps. So obviously people can contact you after this session if they've got any more questions. I mean, we've whizzed through, I think, a lot more than 12 questions there, but I'm sure people have got lots more. So drop you a line. Look at your website, I think, come and meet you at the show. What do you advise?
However people want to approach it, we'll be at the next show. We're planning to be at all the shows. We've been at all the shows. So come and meet us at the shows. So
in London, we're on D30, stand D30.
Thank you. I didn't know what stand.
Yeah.
If they want to, drop us a line. We can arrange a separate Zoom, and answer all questions. If they happen to be in Florida, come and see us in the office. We can sit down and have a chat around the table, and Zoe will put the kettle on.
Yeah. I think those Zoom calls, Liz, are very good because, again, as a nation, we're all very cautious, aren't we? We don't want to get entrapped, and we think if we put our name in the hat, somebody's going to get hold of us and hold on to us. We're not like that at all. We'd actually prefer, if people have got questions, to let us know, jump on a Zoom call. We'll sit for 40 minutes, answer any questions. It may be that's enough, and they say, oh, we've had enough of you, and off they go. But it might be the beginning of something where they think, oh, we can do this and we'd like to do this. So it's really quite exciting, but that's a very low level, informal, no obligation way that people can approach us, get the information they need, and they might go away for a couple of years. They might come back again. That's fine.
Well, that does happen. People go away for 2 or 3 years and then come back and say, hey, we something happened and it meant we couldn't do it, but now we can. So what do we need to do? And we can pick the baton up whenever they're ready.
Yeah, no, doing Zooms it's become a way of life and actually gives people reassurance, I think, as much as anything else. And you can also do property tours, like, can't you? You can do FaceTime, you can do all sorts now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's been very common over COVID. It was tours. So someone would like a house, and I would go, or Howard would go, or Zoe would go, and we'd walk the house, and then WhatsApp them the video and they would say yes or no, and we would do that until they found the house they liked.
I think that's a great tool to sort of cut the selection down, but it's no substitute for coming in person, is it? Really?
No. Yeah, if you can come in person, it's always better. But then that said, it depends on the personality we're dealing with. There have been people that have felt comfortable enough, and obviously we've built up a relationship of trust with them, and they've been able to move forward on the basis of seeing it through the narrated video tours. I mean, we have had incidences where we go to do a video tour for somebody and we almost close it down at that point. Getting in the property, sometimes it can be, oh no, we're not having this property. And that we'll go back to the buyer and say, it's a hard no, and these are the reasons why. So it's not a case of, prettily presenting these homes and persuading people into buying a home because we've gone to see it. It's not about that, because at the end of the day, we are building relationships. And after they've bought, it's important to us. We want them to come onto our property management. We want to put rentals in the houses for them if they're renting it out. So it's an ongoing relationship rather than a thank you, take your money and off we go. So it has to be right.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Well, thank you. I think that's been very useful. I hope it's been useful for everyone out there. So thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Appreciate it.